Welcome to Retail Right Now. This is session 4 and our last session, Expect the Unexpected, what global retail innovation can tell us about the future. Thank you all for joining us. I'm Tom Quinn. I'm a principal in Deloitte's retail practice here in Melbourne, and I work with leading retailers across the country. I've spent my entire career either as a retailer or as a consultant to retailers in the States, in Canada, and now in Australia. So welcome to this final session of the Retail Right Now series. We've really been exploring the future of the retail industry and what it means for retailers right now. This series has explored everything from the key trends set to shape retail in 2022 and beyond, the integration of the physical and digital worlds as we move from social commerce to the metaverse, and to the power of creativity as a key unlock for growth. Today's session features our co-host and alliance partner, Salesforce. We have 2 speakers with deep retail expertise who will be exploring a different perspective on the industry. They'll be sharing what global innovation can tell us about the future and what retailers can do to prepare for the unexpected and rise to new opportunities. Based on insights from this year's NRF that they've experienced, as well as supporting data from the Australian Shopper Insights. Let me introduce our 2 co-hosts. First, there's Marcella Larson. Marcella is the Senior Director of Retail Industry for Australia and New Zealand for Salesforce. She has a wealth of experience working at the intersection of digital and retail, having spent nearly 20 years at Microsoft as a retail industry executive. We also have Imran Khan. Imran is a Senior Director of Industry Strategy for Retail and Consumer Goods at Salesforce. He has more than 20 years of global experience in corporate as well as a consultant and also as a technologist. He is an expert in solutions that retailers, consumer goods, FMCG companies can really choose to implement to face the challenges that they're all facing today. And finally, we have David White, who is Deloitte's National Retail Leader, who will be handling the question and answer portion of this session. So let me hand this over to Imran to begin, and I hope you enjoy this session.
Many thanks, Tom, and thank you for a great introduction. And good, afternoon, everyone. Let me share my screen and we'll get going. So just bear with me and let me do that. And really excited to be in this panel today. So so without further ado, okay, great. So thank you for your time. We've got an exciting lineup. Both me and Marcella will probably tag together and have kind of a conversational session. We would love you to ask questions as well. So please also submit questions, and we'll have 4 polls today as well. So please also participate in those. We'll love your feedback. So in terms of the agenda today, we're going to cover some key findings with data that we have about what happened in the holiday season, both locally and globally. And Marcella's going to share a lot about what to look ahead, and a lot of these messages that were also aligned with the NRF that occurred in not too long ago in January. And I had the luxury 2 weeks ago of being in New York, and although the NRF wasn't able to run a store tour, I was able to actually do a store tour across those kind of 3 key pillars. And I'll actually share live pictures, photos, videos of my experience and what the retail market looks like and what probably to expect globally from the innovations occurring in New York as well. Great. So without further ado, we're very privileged from a Salesforce point of view that we actually get access to over 1 billion shoppers going through our platform and over 2 billion kind of data sets that come through across 34 countries. And we also use external companies to do audits and kind of get information from the industry. So we have global surveys, primary research, a vast wealth of information, real information of how shoppers are behaving, which we're going to share today. And we refer to that as our shopping index. Some of the key kind of, pressures that you've probably been seeing in the markets, and some of these were coming through from the NRF, was everyone's talking about pricing and the implications of inflation. Now, the US is obviously experiencing a much higher inflation number. Australia has so far been in a much better position, numbers of 20% in the US, where locally they're ranging between 4 to 5 to 6%. But, this is kind of a forward-looking statement of what the implications could be. one of the other biggest areas is labor, shortage of labor, but also what does the new workforce look like with the change of consumer behavior? So it's also linked to skills. And the shift to spending, and we'll get into this, how COVID drove a certain shift. There was a 7,000% increase on yeast because everyone became a banana bread maker over the last 2 years. And a lot of families got together cooking at home when they were at home. So there was a complete shift of category purchasing. And I think everyone's heard about the supply chain challenges. There's been a 300% of cost of supply chain in general during COVID, but that's straining even more, and there's more implications and there's more pressures coming on. So, these are external kind of pressures that are all coming together at the same time to create a unique swell.
And Imran, I'll just add, it's not really all doom and gloom with inflation, although it's been in our press quite a bit here. We're starting to see those price increases come from the supermarkets in particular, impacting all of us. But we have to think back before COVID when we saw the pricing wars and the margins have been very thin. So in some sense, it's some health for the retailers. We're about 3.5% increase for our CPI. The US is sitting about 7.5%. So it's really seeing how the households are squeezed here, what's going to happen with interest rates. But the other thing to keep in mind as we share some of our North American data is we're seeing the consumer shift in a lot of services spend in the households of the US, mainly on health and education. So Americans have to pay a tremendous amount for their healthcare and their kids' education, whereas here, once they're in uni, it's kind of scot-free, and we've got beautiful Medicare. So I'm feeling somewhat optimistic, really. I know we expect uncertainty, but I think we're in a good place in the world at the moment if we can get the supply chain worked out better.
Fantastic. And also the skills and kind of like careers. So you're right. We're in a much better base than, what like majority of news comes up from the US, but we're not in that situation. So let's look at some of that data. So let's look at some of that real data and what's been shifting and what's been occurring, during Christmas and the new year. One of the biggest changes we're seeing in expectations is, center stage for holiday. Online demand has actually smoothed out across the season. So there always used to be a big, huge increase of online channel due to Cyber Week, Black Fridays, but we're still seeing sales growth, of 16% increase in the first 2 weeks of the season. But there is more of a kind of flattening of consistent usage of the online channel. And we've touched on the inflation on the right. And one of the other findings was, we call it click and collect globally. Buy online, pick up in store is a common terminology, but stores that were able to provide click and collect had 2 times higher sales at a global level. So, what you can see there is, although US had an increase of online, well, as an average, the global online sales were 5%. If you look at ANZ for that same time period, it was actually 19%, close to 4 times higher. Now, you could also argue ANZ had a lower base. Before COVID began, US and UK had close to 20% online penetration. We were on about 12%, so we are catching up. But I guess the increase in ANZ is bringing us closer to a base, same as global. Marcella, did you also want to add some flavors to this?
Well, I think no doubt this click and collect trend is here to stay. And what we're hearing from a lot of the customers that we're speaking with is some of their most successful campaigns. We'll take Dan Murphy's, for instance, their pickup in the boot of your car, one of the best campaigns that they've run. So I think we're going to continue to see new experiences in the store and this evolution towards social commerce. So it's not just buying online, it's all the digital touch points, which we're going to get into, that add to the experience. So it's going to be an interesting year ahead.
Well, I just read Tesco's in the UK has brought a service. I do this all the time. I go to Coles or Woolies and then I forget something. I may have forgot ketchup, or may have forgot the milk that my wife uses versus the one I use. She loves Zimmel. I like full cream, and then I have to go back. Now they're providing a service that within 15 minutes they can deliver that one item. So that kind of instant kind of delivery model is also evolving, and UK is testing quite a few things out, but a lot of those will manifest themselves here. So touching on the growth, and we mentioned that 19%. So you can see the stats here from 2020 to 2021. Naturally, with COVID, there was a huge exponential growth of online spend that was occurring. And then in 2021, it's kind of started to head back down, but it's on a new base. But what you can definitely see is there's definitely, ANZ, it has a high percentage still. So these are stats that are coming across the world, and you can see by countries how that's changing. There's also a negative drop in certain European countries as well, as you can see. But the other thing is, there's no longer a digital season. Online is a permanent channel. And I think I was listening to the session Deloitte ran on Tuesday, and I love the concept of the micro shopper. So rather than book 2 hours, an hour of your time and go shopping, now you can do micro shopping. Maybe after this webinar, you spend 10 minutes ordering something online, then going back to your work, and then later on. So that is flattening out kind of the usage of the online channel, and the consumers are demanding that kind of consistent experience from online to physical now as well.
And Imran, we had a glimpse. We were talking about the January results are actually looking pretty positive. Year over year, 5% increase in January and 14% all up the year before. So it was a lot of uncertainty before the results came out, but looking like we're getting a fairly decent start into the year, although we may see more shift in spend on services as things open up and less so on goods. So that's going to be an interesting space to watch as well.
Absolutely. And we touched on the fulfillment as well. The last 2 weeks of the season, the fulfillment functionality really drove sales up as well. And from a US point of view, you can see 50% more year on year Black Friday revenue was occurring due to pick up, buy online and pick up in store. The other interesting stats is everyone's been seeing is, credit card growth has actually slowed down, and especially gift cards. But what's really growing is the buy now, pay later. Afterpay, everyone here locally knows, which is now owned by Block. They, used to be Square. And also Apple Pay. So you can see the percentages are very high, 73%. And you can also see from the finance side, 31%. So they obviously come with a smaller base, but you can see, consumers love the idea of buy now, pay later, and find the ease and convenience of Apple Pay as they go to, and, at the inconvenience of PayPal and credit cards and gift cards as well.
In some ways, the payments are causing some complexity and challenges for our retailers, because they have to offer many different services. And so it's becoming more complex to offer many different payments methods. So I think we're going to see a lot more innovation in this country, particularly from the banks, as we continue to see retailers cater towards the preferred option. So a good one, these pay now, buy laters, you tend to sign up for one of choice. So in the end, the retailer has to have many different payment connections, which causes some complexity. So I feel like there's a lot of room for innovation in that space too, from our industry.
Absolutely. And what we're also sharing here is the shift from practical to indulgence. As we're coming out of COVID, the shift from lots of food, beverage are coming in home to shifting to luxury. Everyone's become a kind of home decorator, especially in Australia, having one of the biggest growths outside of owning a pet and moving into owning a dog or a cat, also being renovations. A lot of people have been working from home, and the new model is kind of the digital headquarters, as we refer to. No one's going to go back to the office full time, but a lot of people like that luxury of working from home and also having an office when they want to go there to meet colleagues and stuff. So a lot of people are renovating to make offices at their home and set up in a comfortable way. So you can see this shift that's happening in terms of categories and spend as well. It's quite interesting.
Yeah.
So those are
Imran, I did hear an interesting inflation point with the upsurge in pets. Something like 79% of all people now have a pet, that the services cost for vets have risen across the board 10%. So that is a great industry to be involved with today, anything involving pet services. And the shift to services now, you've got the pet.
Well, I was reading the other week, one of the youngest unicorn is Pet Circle, which has combined online vet advice with online ordering for the best care for your pet and food and any other necessities you need. They recently got 150 million funding through capitalists. So the pet industry is a hugely fastly growing industry, as well as well-being and health across the world, but especially in Australia, like Coles, for example, has increased their category space in the healthcare and come up with their own products as well, both in the pets and health food as well. So 100% agree with those statements and where this category is heading. So let's just now then kind of pivot to 2022 and what NRF was also highlighting. You know, everyone's been talking about the metaverse and NFTs, and to be honest, a lot of retailers and CG companies are getting their heads around this. But the concept of gamification and live shopping. So, you know, there's a lot in there. We'll spend a whole session on this, and you've already had Facebook present 2 days ago. So we won't cover those again. But, you know, the convergence of the physical and digital and the idea of the 2D to immersive is growing and growing. You know, Dyson in this region in New Zealand, if you have, you know, an Oculus, you can actually shop online in a virtual store, but not only buy a Dyson product, but you can speak to someone. And at the same time, you can break open digitally the product and learn about the product as well. So the shift, you know, it's never been greater. Consumers are now expecting a higher and higher level of flexibility, convenience, and options. And at the same time, new ways of working for retailers is asking them to see how they can provide a better options for their workforce, better education and alignment. You know, dark stores are growing, and the role of the store employee is shifting as well. So there's a big shift also on that side as well from the data we're seeing. And from NRF, it was all about acceleration and kind of personalization and loyalty that was coming out as key themes.
And a lot of the innovation that we're seeing in the ecosystem, it's not just limited to the US. Here in Australia, we have a startup called Immutable, and they have a partnership now with GameStop for carbon neutral NFTs in the marketplace that GameStop's planning to launch. So it's great to see that we have innovation to support this future coming from this part of the world as well.
And probably this is a good place to maybe have our first poll. You know, after covering some of these topics. So if everyone can have a look at the question that pops up on your screen, which of the following will you prioritize to improve your customer experience in 2022? You know, there's like 5 options: rapid rise of social commerce, sharper focus on customer privacy, growing need for omni-channel excellence, connecting the online and digital, labor shortages in operations, and finally the supply chain. Where would you prioritize from your perspective? We would love to get your views. So we can quickly update your choices and we'll see what the results are. Thank you, everyone. So from what I can see, supply chain disruptions, 46%, closely followed by omni-channel. And privacy, we didn't get any votes from the poll. That's it. So obviously this is showing that a lot of people are concerned about supply chain and what the implications that can have in providing products to the end customers.
Yeah, and looking at some of the latest earnings results coming out, the retailers that had excess inventory kind of taking a gamble have done fairly well. But now we're entering a new year. So this getting demand and supply right when you just don't have that visibility in the supply chain is going to continue to be a challenge.
Absolutely. So we refer to this, and this was coming from the NRF, was, you know, shoppers are actually rewriting the engagement, what we refer to as the playbook. So organizations, you know, to stay on top, you know, data-driven organizations are actually more likely now to add customers and 6 times more likely to retain them, which is driven by having data and insights internally to use that for smarter engagement. The stats are, you know, after 2 bad experiences, people change brands or retailers. So that's a key area. The second one also is consistency and personalization. That was second on your poll. You know, it's about, you know, having the right personalized experience that's relevant for the individual in the right channel that they prefer to use at that time. No one's only digital, no one's only physical. Everyone wants all channels, but it's about when is the right time to use them. And also loyalty and the shift from transactive loyalty that we're used to with airlines to a more relationship-based loyalty as well. And that was a big theme that was coming out in January. Any comments from you, Marcel, on this, on these stats that came in?
I think we continue to hear about the theme of data, but then I'm seeing interesting innovation in how the retailers are working in partnership to address maybe their lack of talent. We can still continue to see data siloed in legacy systems. So we have a number of stories where we're able to help retailers move quicker to unlock that data. And looking at the rise of new talent, getting skilling to get those people on your teams, and then new partnerships. So you can think about new data sources for that first party data that retailers are after, with cookies deprecation looming in the future. So I think some very interesting things are happening in that space. And in terms of getting demand and supply optimized in supply chain, a lot of what you'll share too, Imran, is this movement towards subscription. And so that's kind of the ultimate too, when you've got better expectations to do that forecasting for demand early on. So I think we'll see a lot more shift in subscriptions in both retail and CPG.
Absolutely. Brands also are moving into subscription business, as you've highlighted. So, so the shifts, and this was kind of from where we're coming from over the last year and a half to where we're heading to. Everyone had shifted to safety, convenience, trust became a number one item. But it was about removing friction when people were actually migrating or forced to migrate to new channels. The sheer volume of increase was a generational change where you were forced to with lockdowns. But now, beyond this now, it's about that frictionless continuation, but service being added to it, personalization, so you're really attuned to the individual's needs and also their household, and really enhancing experiences. So, experience has been deemed as one of the biggest things shoppers want and very important, as well as services, experiences that we'll have from there. And this this was a very strong kind of consistent message from the NRF as well.
I think we have to think about how quickly these things have shifted, and do our retailers have that ability to make those quick shifts if the trends are changing that quick in a year and intense personalization is being demanded and offerings beyond points? How are they having that capability to move quickly? And that's a lot of the discussions that we're having today.
Yes, and I think the average number of systems most retailers have is close to 15 to 20. So a lot of their struggles is how can connect all of that up to personalize and have that end-to-end experience across their channels. This is probably a great time to run our second poll as part of this session as well. So if we could have the second poll up, and the question there is, there's only 3 options. Which do you believe will have the strongest effect on consumer behavior and the ways they shop in 2022? Would it be inflationary pressures? Would it be the supply chain disruptions, or environmental or sustainability perspectives for them? So again, if you could please pick one of those options, we'd love to see, what this audience's views are on that. Again, it's consistent, like the previous poll. Supply chain is definitely high and front of mind for everyone. Thank you for sharing that. So, Marcel, I'll pass you over to you for this slide. And we also have supply chain on this. Great.
All right. I will let you do the driving, Imran. You're in control.
No problem.
So now we're thinking more about what's ahead for 2022 and beyond. And we titled this Expect the Unexpected because really that is the theme today. We're seeing the results come in and we're seeing some favorable trends, but we know there's more change to come, and how retail is responding and addressing, I think, represent the key trends. So just table stakes, this continued focus on privacy. It was interesting to see in the polls that it looks like most of the participants today feel well across that. But I think we're going to continue to see more value and trust from the consumer and more questions around what's being done with the data. Rapid rise of social commerce. This is huge. I think this is something we will see in Australia, more experimentation with things like live streaming, because we know from the data that customers are more likely to buy when their friends recommend, when you can buy together, when it is an interactive experience. And we're seeing a lot of experimentation in the US from the likes of Walmart and Nike, and even in your world, Imran, with CPG brands doing live streaming events. So it's an incredible new source of data to understand the consumer. And I think it's more experimentation of what mediums are going to work. What are you learning from? And how are you going to set up the supply chain to address the peaks that are going to come with live streaming? Omnichannel, again, this is just table stakes. We were saying earlier that the webcast at the beginning of the week set a great tone on hybrid retail. It's just commerce. And this complexity that we have to deal with the back end, it's just reality, because the customer is going to expect that you know them regardless of what medium they start in. And there's so many digital touch points along the way. Labor shortages, absolutely huge. We're seeing borders open. That's not going to be enough. Even the universities, the graduation and immigration for that digital talent, it's not going to be enough. We're working with a lot of creative options on skilling. But this could be positive even for automation and retaining your staff. If they're doing the more creative elements of their role that really challenge them in an interesting way, and you're taking off some of the mundane tasks, that's going to be great for employee retention. So this is going to continue to be a challenge. And of course, the ongoing supply chain disruptions. One thing that we're seeing in the US, I think, is quite interesting is the industry working and exploring more ways to work closer together. So you don't have to have redundancy with supply chain, or even smaller regional supermarkets merging so they have more buying power in the supply chain, because you can't get the space on the ship when you're the smaller retailer. So I think we'll continue to see a lot of innovation ahead there. And it sounds like our audience agrees: supply chain, supply chain, and fulfillment from stores as a way to address that. So response is expected, this humanization. So if we can bring more automation in and remove the basic mundane and get the customer engaged with an employee in the store or online, that's going to be paramount. Unifying commerce across platforms. We know that mobile adoption is high. They're going to be living across many platforms of legacy. Of course, we've talked about this throughout the webcast today. And this digital for human experience. And Imran, what we're going to see from you is even the use of digital in the store, because there's things you want to do when you're in the store and while you're using your phone, and all playing a role in this evolving bricks and mortar experience. So now we have click and collect and drive through. What is going to be the pull into the store? How much is it is going to be education and learning? And building new partnerships, I think this is absolutely key. And this is where we're seeing some really fun stuff come to bear, particularly with CBG, consumer goods, your space, partnering in many cases with retail, store in store. I know we have a load of stories from the US with vertically integrated brands going into the likes of Target and Walmart. And we're seeing some of that happen here too.
Right. Thank you for that. And just to close off then, kind of the key themes that did come from the NRF in the sessions, acceleration. So a lot of the themes we've touched on is about accelerating in the right way. The recovery from the pandemic has now seen a big increase in growth. Paul Zara announced 3 days ago, the stats that came from January were exceptionally positive in terms of orders that were placed and purchasing, even though we had the Omicron wave and there were impacts to retailers from a physical perspective. Our sales have gone up a lot here locally. And then that seamless shopping experience with that integrated online, offline, or that concept the other day of the hybrid experience being together, and that personalization and seeking that local shopping experience. There's also a big ask for values-based shopping. There's a big demand across all generations about understanding through transparency of impacts to the environment. We've got our first retailer in Australia, MJ Bell, that went to net zero. A lot of retailers are falling down those paths as well and looking at how they can also be net zero, circular economy, implications to landfills. Those are all key themes, both globally and locally, and shopping anytime, anywhere, I like. So, those have been the key themes. And before, after this, we're going to go into the store tour. We'll try to make it as exciting as possible for a virtual mode. But before we close off on that, I think it'd be great to run our fourth. We'll just do a fourth poll, and then we'll jump into the store tour. So if you could please put the poll up. So the question here is, what are you most excited about in 2022? Are you excited about the social commerce capabilities and where they'll help you move forward? Are you excited about the consumer expectations and being an omni-channel expert, or creating agile systems in the face of supply chain and labor disruptions? Where would you put your priorities? Again, please, if you could answer those, we would love to see. And we haven't got a supply chain question in here, so we'll get a different answer. Okay, let's see what the results are. So creating agility, agile systems in the face of supply chain and labor disruptions. So we have a consistent theme. So at least we know what's front of mind, Marcella, with all the teams here. So as part of the store tour, you kind of see some of these as well. So thank you for sharing that. And now we're going to jump into the store, the store experience. So,
and Imran, I'll just say in working with customers over the years in these type of sessions, we are seeing supply chain really move to the front of the house.
Yes, exactly.
Paramount over customer experience, because I guess it is. So it's really interesting to see this play out in the polls.
And I can understand why so many retailers are concerned, because based on the populations in North America and Europe, they are eating up a lot of the space and willing to pay that extra amount. So it's harder for this region also to get, there's more impacts happening. So there are definitely concerns there, and that agility and that kind of ability to look at other ways and partnering closer will make a big difference. So in terms of store tours, there's 3 physical concepts. The concept of realtainment. So how you converge entertainment with retail. And we'll go into that first. And then we'll go into phygital. Well, I find that very hard to say, but how you connect the online and offline experience and blend the two. And we'll cover a few stores there. And then the last concept is experiential, the old with the new, the traditional with the new, and how they can merge together and provide an amazing experience, and very community-based as well. So these are going to be the 3 exciting tours we do. So let's start with the first one. There's a place called America Dream in New Jersey. So we're going to gravitate towards there.
Yeah. It is good that you got out of Manhattan. So once you cross the Hudson, we start to see middle America and maybe what retail can look like in scale and attracting in more of the everyday. So very cool you got out of Manhattan.
Absolutely. And the Uber driver gave me the full history of this place. It took 15 years to make. It went through 3 companies. And they literally officially opened up 2 days before COVID really hit America hard. So they couldn't have timed it any worse. But there was a lot of mixed feelings about the place. But let me take you through the entertainment this place has. It has a full-blown snowboarding, skiing complex within the retail place. And you'd think, Dubai was famous for this years ago. So similar concept. But at the same time, that wasn't enough. They've added a full-blown water park. We would normally go to Queensland and go to wild water rides. This can compete with that. And then therefore, let's add an ice skating rink there as well. So while you're shopping, you can go for, do a bit of ice skating, learn a few new skills. But then they also add the sea life. So you can go and enjoy, what sea life is about. And you can also ride these kind of motorized animals with kids and stuff as well. So you can have a little go-karting experience. And then they added the museum in there too, where you can take these amazing photographs and tilts and stuff. It makes it look like you're in the most famous places in the world. And I thought when I looked at this, I thought, that's quite a lot. I spent the whole day doing this, but I've only seen half of it. They've got a whole-blown Legoland Discovery Center as well, and playground. So you could literally spend a whole day doing that with the kids as well. But they didn't stop there. They decided to add a full-blown roller coaster theme park as well, with actually pretty big roller coasters next to the water park. And then they also then decided to add a bit of golf in there too. So you can see they've really gone to the extreme and added lots of entertainment. and then they added, as I mentioned, the water park, but also a 3-story sugar. Well, I call it a sugar park rather than stone. We'll go into that as well. So there's a lot to do just from an entertainment point of view. And it's a very big place. But there's more coming.
Imran, what did you feel the cost for a family involved with these days would be? Just in,
geez, I mean, I've got 2 boys. I've got a 14-year-old and 11-year-old, and they will probably, want me to come every day and go to each. I think you couldn't do all of them in one day. That was my first impression, and I was like, where would I go and what would I do first? It's like sometimes it's too much. And it did feel like there was so much there. And now they're going to add an escape room as well. So, yeah, and this is the feedback I was getting. There was a lot of animosity with a lot of the locals feeling that it doesn't have a soul potentially. So it was interesting. It's so big. It's like I've never seen a more big and I haven't even touched shopping yet. And these are all the entertainment options, and there's more coming. So it was a bit overwhelming. When I was there, and I'd spend a few hours walking around looking at all of those. But then what they've done is, and this is kind of showing the current state in the US, they put like top end of town, like, the French end of the mall where you have all your blue ribbon brands, the chandeliers. But this picture you can see, and those lovely drawings and paintings you can see on the left and the right, you think that's part of the design. But actually, all those paintings are where stores should be. So you can see it's highly underutilized. Not many brands have actually gone and opened up stores, physical stores yet at the top end of town. If the rumor was that they provided Saks Fifth Avenue free location to bring their brand in to help bring other of the top end brands into this store. But as you can see there, a lot of it is empty. They have Gucci, they have a few others, but all of those colored boards are actually where stores should be. So you can see there's a lot of potential there on the top end of town retail. I also took a video of this as well, and you might get a better appreciation. Like as I was walking through, you could see that, there wasn't many people there, a lot of empty slots and a few shops popping up here and there. And then you have a lot of empty allocations, as you can see down that whole corridor. So, that is a concern, I think, for the mall. And, they have to find ways to bring those brands away from 6th Avenue and also into this area as well. So I was quite surprised at that to see, but you can see some are coming. So you can see posters of retailers who are now committing to come there. Please do ask questions as well as I go through this. Would love to share that. Within this amazingly big American Dream Mall was also kind of more the traditional retailers like Primark and stuff. But what I would like to concentrate on the far right, Amazon 4-star. So obviously Amazon has multi-channels and physical stores, but they also have a store where they sell anything that has 4 stars and more as a physical store. And, when I went in there, it was really interesting. So it was anything that's 4-star, which kind of made sense to me. But it's rated 4-star, but it's also a top selling brand. So this, what's available in there can change from week to week, depending on how online behavior is occurring. And the other interesting thing was they had digital price tags. So everything could be changed quickly in real time. So they were very dynamic on that side of things. And they also had a full app to purchase. So you could literally walk in, use your app, a bit like the Apple Store experience, and walk out. And the other interesting thing was what's the most wished for on Amazon kind of store within the store. So you can see what people were really buying at a kind of national level. But at the same time, they had options of different categories in the store. It was a very open design, free walking, you can decide where to go, we have a look, pick up things. But they also put in an area within the area. Like I went to New Jersey where this mall is, and they were showing what was trending in that region. What's trending right here, what people locally buying. So they were kind of bringing the online kind of trends and products into the store. So it was quite an interesting experience, and it felt a bit like Apple-ish, but just a bit more options and variety in that store.
And Imran, I think we saw just today, Amazon announced they're planning to close these stores to focus more on their department store and their food. But if we go back to your photos there, it all looks more like a pop-up store. Quite easy maybe to move out quickly. Correct.
And then, the other side of this was, we talk about CG brands. Now, CG brands like Mondelez are also opening up retail stores. They've opened up the Oreo Cafe. This is the world's first, and it's the only place you can go at the moment to experience the Oreo Cafe. And it's in a three-story sugar shop. And, if my two boys were there, I don't think they would leave even now. And you can see from the pictures, they had all, it was a blending of products, clothing, and Oreo biscuits, Oreo chocolates, Oreo ice creams. And they had the Lucky Lick Dip. They had shirts with the Oreo logos on you could buy. And we'll get to M&M's, very similar to that. But this is kind of the first time a brand company has kind of invested in a physical model and selling lots of components, lots of things related to their brand. And you can see that they had these big Oreo, those weren't edible, but they were hanging off the ceiling. And they had a cafe. They're offering 2 for the price of 1 cookies. Very popular. And they also had built that statue you can see on the left, Liberty. They've literally used an amazing amount of jelly beans to create that as well. So, their philosophy there is come in, eat as much sugar as you want, enjoy the indulgence for the time you're there. And, it's 3 stories high. And the other interesting thing was they were connecting some of that digital experience there. You could do a live chat with a QR code. You could speak to someone. You can see kind of the way they designed the whole mall with that kind of modern looking, design and colors. And also you could go to the mall outside of retail after dark and have an experience at night, going to the kind of the more entertainment side of things. So, so that was kind of retainment. So what we're going to do now?
Ron, did you get the sense from visiting the sugar store, the Mondelez stores, and some of the other, that as the consumer good brands are increasingly having a more direct relationship with customers, maybe they'll be prioritizing some of their supply and stock for their direct business? How do you think that's going to go with the retailers themselves?
Yeah, look, a lot of CG companies, the lifeblood of CG companies is still retailers. 80% of the business goes there, and that will remain. But what a lot of CG brands are doing is coming up with new brands that have never been available maybe on the retail channel, and using that as a way to connect as well. So a online only, and sometimes, like Kit Kat stuff, they can put your name on the label. They're coming up with more personalization, direct connection options. And I think that's kind of a trend that will remain, because it kind of supports a win-win relationship across the 2 channels. But, more and more dipping their toes in now. And, what they realized with COVID was the brand also had to have a engagement with the end user of their products. Most times they'll still connect them to the retailer, but they needed to understand, how their brand would connect with their end consumer. So what
they're bringing back into their retail partners to help them enhance their sales. So it's not so much competition, it's more they're enhancing the brand, and they're learning that the retailers can gain that benefit from it, sounds like.
Correct. So now we're going to drive back from New Jersey back to Manhattan and cover the physical and cover, how online and digital. So everyone knows Netflix. It's a streaming company, and most people probably seen Stranger Things. Netflix has opened up a temporary store to sell Stranger Things retail products. And even when you want to go in, they've had this kind of zapping with a QR code, lock in a time and go in, and then you can buy products from Stranger Things TV show, I guess. And then near to there was the M&M store, which has been there for a while. And similar to the, Oreo one, it was 3 stories high. They were connecting retail products labeled with their products of M&Ms. There was cups, there was mugs, there was shoes. There was a very open design space. And I got in there at 11 p.m. and this was very busy. So, it's literally virtually like 24 hours in there. And it was very interesting to see, 3 levels of M&M products a lot of people were interested to go in there as well. Now, the other one next to M&M's, because this is on in Times Square, was Taco Bell opened up the first digital QSR in the world. And this is very famous because when you walk in, you go into these points and you can order your food and then just collect it at the end. But it's all digital enabled, and basically you can do the whole thing without really speaking to anyone. And this is their flagship store from a QSR point of view in Times Square. And you can use these devices, you can tap, you can order, collect. Now, it's not too dissimilar to McDonald's here, in all honesty, when they have those, screens, but they also have the click and collect, as you can see on this picture that popped up. And they have these booths where you can order, and as you arrive, you get code, and it opens up those boxes and take you through the way. And they have click and collect for online orders and also storage to pick up as well, which I thought was interesting. And I went to another QSR, and what was very common in New York was all like quick service restaurants had this area for delivery pickups and app pickups, and it was consistent. Everywhere they had allocation for this. So they would just go and pick up for delivery, or they'll pick up for apps. And New York was very famous for 15-minute delivery. And there's actually a lot of dark stores all over New York, as shops have shut down, where they will deliver food quicker, and they're guaranteeing like 15-minute deliveries in a lot of areas of New York. And I tested that out, and it was 15 minutes. It was quite amazing. Every restaurant I logged into, I had an option to order the food, and someone would turn up within 15 minutes to deliver that as well.
And Imran, we're getting a question in from the audience.
Yes, let's go through those.
The innovation that you saw in the New York area, what really inspired you that we could embrace back here in Australia that haven't seen yet, that might scale or be appropriate in our market?
Yes, I mean, our capital cities, like we already have companies in Melbourne, Sydney, and even Brisbane that are delivering guaranteed 30-minute deliveries. The cost has probably been higher though than it would be in New York for those services. There's also a company called Gimme that's crowdsourcing deliveries. So for us, it'll probably be more concentrated where we have that population concentration. Traditionally, that'll be the Eastern Board and Perth, and the capital cities more so, whereas America is kind of, New York obviously is highly dense, but it's kind of spreading across, and the UK as well with the density. And there's a question on dark store fulfillment. Look, dark stores growing, and we're going to touch on this. The concept of dark stores in Asia is one of the biggest growing patterns. A lot of companies are investing in dark stores. And I think there'll be more and more of that micro fulfillment and the blending of stores. Woolworths here also has a dark store now set up, and there's a whole different paradigm how you set up those stores for convenience to get the products versus experience. So yes, that's definitely going to be a key trend coming up as well.
And there's a real opportunity in our CBDs with this shift from residential to commercial real estate, where space is opening up that's more affordable. So Absolutely. This is a model that wouldn't have been affordable or sustainable 3 years ago. So potentially there's some benefits coming with new real estate options.
There is, because it's cheaper to rent. Like in New York, they're getting ridiculously cheap offers to rent empty space now as well. That's why a lot of them are using those as dark stores and delivery. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go to a place called Hudson Yards, still in Manhattan. It's relatively new, and it was quite amazing. And they've got this big monument in front, which you couldn't climb at the time, unfortunately. But I had a quick look at it. But Hudson Yard is digital to physical, and they've got some amazing shops in there. We're going to cover a few of those. The first one I'll cover, I don't know if you've heard of a company called Beta. So this is an online-only purchasing company, but you can go into their store, and I love this typewriter, classic typewriter that Bluetooths to your iPad. I should actually bought this. They let you experience the products they sell online, and the products change every week within the store. And within a quarter, when I was speaking to a lady, it's never the same. Complete shift of every product that in the store would completely change every 3 months. Now, as you look at these products, next to there is an iPad, and you can zap a QR code, and you could buy that product and get delivered to you. You can't pick out from the store, but it's about experiencing products, seeing what they're like, feeling what they're like, learning about them, because some of these products are quite innovative, and then you can go online and order them at any time, and they make it easy. And all the information's on the iPad about the product, who's made them. This is kind of open source for small companies to put their products in display on these stores. Stores got a really nice feel to it, open style, and you can see every product that has an iPad with all the information you'd want from there. So I found that was interesting. So Beta is a very unique kind of, they don't sell abroad yet, it's only in the US. So I was asking how could I ship that and order that typewriter. Unfortunately, they don't have that option. But they also have Camp. which is more for kids. But what they've done is they blended camp with a coffee place, so you can have ice creams and chocolates, but they've made it playable. So kids can play with things in there, like can jump in the car. They can also climb above those bookshelves when you're looking for toys and stuff and have a little play area. You can see a slide and you can go down the slide. So it's like a miniature theme park, play area, there are puzzle rooms and books and toys. So it's a great place, especially for kids, probably 5 to 7, 8, that, you know, they got the LCD display at the bottom, which makes it look like a river, makes it look like forest. So, you know, it was very kind of, a connected experience. And then I was passing this shop that had seats, and normally, you know, seats, you buy seats. They set up a dedicated gaming area, and how the seats could be properly set up for gamers. And gaming is one of the fastest growing categories, especially with lockdown. Everyone's playing games. And this was a dedicated area on how you could set up to have the best gaming experience, the right seats for gaming as well.
That was, again, Herman Miller, which is basically the best model you could have in these chairs. But I have to just, I'd be remiss if I didn't call out that Herman Miller are pioneering in the race to net zero, and they're one of our customers.
Yes.
So it's interesting to see they're going with more physical stores and bringing some fun into their category. Absolutely.
Now what we're going to do, we're going to pivot to Apple, the famous Apple store on Fifth Avenue. And it's the only Apple store that's 24/7. It is huge in size, underground. You go down these revolving stairs. And, you know, all Apple stores have a similar design, but the sheer scale of this was massive. But they also had personalization options where if you bought iPods, AirPods, you put your name on the device there and then before you walked out. They had huge screens, like best quality TV screens, showing the creativity areas. And, you know, it was 24/7, and people could sit there, they socialize, they connect, they look at all the products. But it was massive. So that was an interesting experience. And then I went to Nike store just down the road from there. It's 5 stories. And they actually have a studio on helping you wear the right clothes and combinations. They have a lab. And it's all app-based. And you can even try products and give it back within 30 days, no questions asked. And they also have connected the metaverse with Nikeland for kids. And you can use Snapchat, and you can bring a digital experience. But Nike, obviously, with Roblox, has gone large already in the metaverse with Nikeland. And then this was the Snapchat, scan and play basketball in the kids area downstairs. But the design was very futuristic. And if you liked something, if you needed a size, you scan it and someone will walk out to you. You use the Nike app, they'll see where you are, and they'll bring the size to you. But also in the expert studio area upstairs, you could buy the whole package. They say these are the combinations that look really good from a design point of view. So you could zap that QR code and you could put in your card the hoodie, the track pants and socks and the shoes, which go really well together, and the bag on the side. So you could actually have tailored offerings that were displaying in the store, which I thought was really interesting.
And then, Imran, I just want to call this one out because this, to me, the innovation on the digital side is when you go into that store with, it recognizes you're now in the physical store and your app experience changes.
Yes.
Than if you're outside the store. And I think that's very clever.
That is. And then Lego, you know, the famous store in Lego is a discovery experiential store. You can see that they've made huge monuments with Legos. You could create your own figurines and build those, and they'll come out. You could design them through this app in the store on the 3rd level, personalize them, and they had built all these cars and all these Marvel, and you could sit in the car. And for the Melburnians, the biggest Apple store about to open in the Southern Hemisphere will be in Melbourne next month, which will be following this footprint that first started in New York. So what you see here is coming to Melbourne in a month's time. So definitely make your way down. It will be in Melbourne Central. Now, I do want to move into the other last section in the 4 minutes we have. But just to finish off, Amazon and Starbucks have now are piloting the idea of having an Amazon Go and a Starbucks combined experience. You walk in and it's a joint Starbucks, Amazon Go, build one app in, order Starbucks, go in, get products. So it's a trial they're doing in New York to see how this will go with people. It's open till quite late as well. So again, mixing that digital to physical. So in the last 4 minutes, now let's go to Well, this was the other thing in Times Square I thought was quite amazing. So Galaxy was kind of having these 3D LCDs, and they made it look like the tiger was coming out. So, you know, it was quite scary, I think, for a lot of people on cars as they're driving, and this tiger will come out as well. So they're really using all those digital assets to give that experience as well, which I know my kids thought was quite cool as well. So what we're going to do now is, in the last 4 minutes, we're going to go to Soho, which is famous for a value-based, experiential, traditional kind of shopping experience. So in here, you can see they've got these lovely cobbled stones. It looks like you're in Paris or France. It's very traditional, very authentic. It's got a great vibe. The shops, you know, they have this, they're simply looking, they've got a big museum of ice cream there. And, you know, it doesn't even feel like America, but it has a very nice appeal to it. And they have big brands there that have kept traditional to the look and feel of that area, the traditional with the new. But there's technology. So Shopify is an e-commerce company, but they have a store. And, you know, you can come in, you can zap in, and I've walked in there. They have like a little gaming area. But the most important thing is they have the concept of local sellers, and what they're selling on their website can actually put the physical products in the store. And you can, similar to the beta experience that. You can, and they also had a downstairs area for people to meet other entrepreneurs and learn from each other and help build prints. And the biggest thing was they help you do photography for your products to put on their website. So it was a very interesting model they had at Shopify. And they only have 2 stores in the world, one in LA and one in New York. And this was the New York one. And now we also saw other companies there like Camper, and the design inside was very unique. You can see on the right, it says Camper, you got shoes, but when you look from the other way, they're all shoes heading down. So, you know, interesting designs for the stores. And then we also went, you know, I said pet stores is the fastest growing kind of industry. They've got this great pet store called Ready, where they help personalize for your animal, high on sustainability. They help, you know, manicure them, and it's a great experience. And the depth of products there and options there was huge, and, you know, very pet friendly shop as well. So,
and knowing their target base, so that's actually owned by Petco, which is scaling to the masses in the big box store. But it's great to see that they've got this niche now in Manhattan for that affluent pet owner.
And then obviously the other one is mixing camping, outdoors, cycling, skiing. You know, there's a big famous store there that mixes it all together. A huge free store is called REI, and, you know, they have camping, cycling, and skiing in there as well. But before we finish our session, I do also want to touch on Showfields, which really brings in values-driven missions with local small companies to sell products. That first picture is the lift, which may be very dizzy. And they have very unique styles where, again, you can slide down from level 4 to level 3. They have this great gaming area of people selling games machines, but they also sell chess. And you can see, you can zap the QR code and get all the information about who's selling it, what's their values. And they have these little nooks that you find hidden, and you suddenly find all these products like an exercise machine. So it forces you to go and have a look around. It's very unique styles, changes every 2 steps, the look and feel of the store. So I guess to finish off then, I also went to Sour Patch Kid, which was in Soho, very similar to M&M's, as you can see here as well. Again, very famous, been a very traditional view. And then I guess finally, let's finish off on the 50-minute grocery. Marcella, you want to touch on this?
Yeah, I think this brings up that provocative theme we were touching on. It's now possible to get deliveries in 15 minutes or less. And I think you shared with me, you could even order an apple into your hotel room for no fee, under 15 minutes. But it's also, is it sustainable? Because we saw just this morning, the New York governor is going to ban the 15-minute or less advertising. So it's taken a sudden turn, but it's like hyper experience, hyper convenient. And there's a battle for it. You probably saw when you're in New York, there's many different apps and brands advertising this. But it's all possible with micro fulfillment and dark stores. But maybe have we gone and seen a step too far? You know, exactly. And I know you're going to share more in the close here, but
well, yeah, I guess we'll pass over to David. You know, that was everything we wanted to cover. So it brings to the end of our kind of store experience and stats. So David, over to you.
Thanks, Imran. Thanks, Marcella. That was wow. That was awesome, and I love the stores and the show, and it really just reminds me of wanting to get back and get into some of these amazing retail stores. And
Absolutely.
whilst it's been great shopping online and doing things digitally, but sometimes you can't beat that physical experience. So thanks ever so much for sharing that with us, and thanks both of you for your insights today. You covered a hell of a lot of the ground, a lot for us to take away. So we'll certainly have a think about that. And I'm sure you'll be open to questions. If anyone participating in this webinar has some questions, we'll pass those through to you.
Thank you. And we can share the report as well, so everyone has access to that live report that updates real time every quarter as well.
Fantastic. Okay, well, I think we're bang on up against time here. So thanks again ever so much, guys, for sharing that with us. That brings to the end our Retail Right Now series. If you haven't managed to join all of the sessions, they will be made available via recordings later on in the next few days or so, once we have that all reviewed, prepared and signed off. Just a quick recap of what we have covered during the series. So we had an opening from Paul Zara talking around the state of the retail industry in Australia. He has some amazing insights. He talks to all of the major retailers every day, so really interesting to hear what he had to say. And also around what he's focusing on with an election year and supporting retailers to get their fair share of support from local and federal government. So that was great. I then followed off on that first session with the sort of the 6 mega trends that we see really changing the landscape for retail. And I think the 5 trends that Salesforce covered off really underlined some of the day-to-day practical applications of those trends. So that was fantastic. We also had Facebook following up with an amazing session looking at the metaverse. They were joined by Kate Blythe, the CEO of Mecca, and some really good insights. And that's just something to keep an eye on, how that changes and moves over time. So I found that fascinating. And then yesterday we had Google looking at the role of digital in the volatile marketplace, the importance of creativity, marketing, and first-party data, and the ability to scale. So there's some amazing insights from that session as well. So that really brings to the end our Retail Right Now series, looking ahead of what's happening in retail and then trying to bring it back to what we're seeing today. I really hope you found that the series useful. Watch this space. We will be having a virtual show bag with all of the presentations, publications or thought leadership that support it. And as I say, the recordings as well that you can watch back at your leisure and also share with your teams and anyone else that you think would be interested. So with that, I'd like to say thank you ever so much for joining us. I wish you all the best and good luck with 2022. Take care.